Hi, everyone. My name is Amanda. Welcome to the Los Angeles Public Library's NaNoWriMo Teen Writers Group for our November 30th National Novel Writing Month program finale. I'm Amanda Charles, a young adult librarian at Teenscape, the library within Los Angeles Public Library's central library that is just for young people ages 12 to 19. I'd also like to introduce my colleagues who have been here for all these programs and help craft them. Neil Citron, a young adult librarian at Abbott Kinney Memorial Branch in Venice and the co-founder of the Greater Los Angeles Writers Society, and Emily Meehan, a young adult librarian at the Palms Rancho Park, where she not only runs the Palms Rancho Park Teen Creative Writing Club for young people ages 11 to 18, but an awesome Dungeons and Dragons game as well. We want to thank the Library Foundation of Los Angeles and the support of our generous donors, the Lenore S. and Bernard A. Greenberg Fund. Every Monday in November, we've been doing these programs for National Novel Writing Month, NaNoWriMo, for teens. Some of them have been on the library's YouTube and Facebook channels like this one. Other ones have been private Zoom meetings. Today, as I said, is our finale, and we have some great guests for you today. So we're going to be talking about what happens to your manuscript after it's completed. We're going to be talking to literary agent Steve Hudson about how to get an agent, what agents do, and a little bit about how publishing works. You'll also be able to ask questions in the chat later. So if you have questions and you want to ask a real live agent, please add them to the chat and we will read them off a little bit later after the initial interview. Later, after the interview, we'll be hearing from Krista from the Central Library Literature and Fiction Department. She has library resources for writers on editing, query letters, and even some self-publishing resources too. So we've got a lot of great stuff about what happens after you finish your novel, what to do with that novel that you finished during NaNoWriMo. So let's go ahead and get started. Before we delve into our interview with our guest, I wanted to take a few minutes to shout out everybody who participated in NaNoWriMo. And to offer you the opportunity, if you want to share how you did, whether you met your word count goal, if you learned any important lessons, you can share them in the chat. We'll read them off. And also, we have participants in NaNoWriMo here with us today. So for instance, I tried it and I wrote 2,500 words, which is way less than the 50,000 words that is the goal. But I learned a valuable lesson. That is, if you want to rack up some big word counts, you need to write every day. So maybe next year, I'll try writing every day. Neil?
Yeah, this is my 6th or 7th challenge with NaNoWriMo. I have won it a couple of times, and I'm wearing a shirt to prove it. This year, and I've done this a couple of times, I actually went with converting a screenplay into novel form. And even though I made it to a little over 21,000 words. Even though I didn't make the official 50,000, I enjoyed myself. That's an interesting experience. And I also learned if you're going to go screenplay to novel, you need to make sure that you build up because there's usually not enough in a screenplay to go a full 50,000 words. So that was one of my takeaways. Emily?
All right. Yeah, I participated. I knew I wasn't going to do 50,000. This is my 2nd time doing it. The first time I did it was 10 years ago when I was a senior in high school, and I did 50,000 words then. And I don't know how I did it. This year, I was hoping to make maybe 30,000. And I ended up with 15,000. So I'm still super happy with that. At the beginning, I wrote for the first 2 weeks of November every day. Every day I wrote, and I think I got burnt out a little quickly and I stopped. And then the next thing I knew, I wasn't writing anything. And there was a point where I felt like I was such a failure, you know, like, oh man, I can't even reach my, like, the under 50,000 goal that I set for myself. But after like thinking about it the past few days, doing a little bit more writing at the end of the month, I kind of thought, you know what, that's just not my way of writing. I have discovered like that I kind of need to space out my writing a little bit, just to get myself into it, because I haven't written anything this much in a long time. And I'm planning to start again in December and start writing at least like every other day, about 1,000 words, and try and finish up this thing that I have going. So yeah, so it wasn't a total failure, but yeah, learned a lot about what I'm writing and my writing style. So it was a partial success for me.
Thank you. So yeah, even if you don't finish, there are still lessons you can learn and ways that you can use Nano to become a better and more productive writer, even if it's just learning what your writing style is. So now we're going to move on to the interview with awesome literary agent Neil Hudson. I'm going to turn it over to, or pardon me, Steve Hudson. I'm going to turn it over to Neil.
Well, wait till Steve shows up on the screen there. We've blended together,
Hello.
Steve. It was a Neil Hudson. We blended together somehow. Can you hear me? There you go.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Well, first of all, I just want to just briefly. Steve Hudson from Wordwise Media is our guest agent today, and I would like Steve to spend a couple of minutes talking about himself, being an agent, and all of that before we start the full end of the interview. So
well, this is not the okay. This is not the way that my career was supposed to go. Coming out of high school, I was going to be an accountant, or I was going to work in theater. But I always wanted to be a writer. That never left me. I finally got my first book published almost 20 years ago. It was a lot more work than I thought. For a while, I ran an editing service. I attended writers' conferences where I learned more about the business and the craft of writing. Then I put an ad in Craigslist, my editing service, and I got a call from a film producer who wanted me to help him convert his screenplays into novels. And I almost had that done, and then he canceled the project. But in the meantime, I got a taste for the deal making and for the industry insider stuff, and I liked it. So the first of the year, 2011, I put up a new shingle and website as an agent. So it's almost 10 years now. And it's the one thing I love doing. I've had several careers. This is the one that I want to keep. There's a lot of bad advice I find going around in chat rooms, on Facebook, on LinkedIn. And I like to think that more people could actually talk to agents and publishers and learn from the people in the trenches, and not necessarily from strangers online. That was one of my first mistakes, was to think that people online knew their stuff, and they didn't. I have about, I think, 50 clients now, and 2 other agents who worked with me. And I would have traveled to 8 conferences this year, except most of them got canceled. I got to go to one in Oklahoma City 2 months ago, so that was nice. I could eat indoors in a restaurant there. It was strange. What else should I cover, Neil?
That's good for starting point, and then we'll get into some of the questions now. And then anything else you want to throw in and add. Steve made a very good comment there talking about going to conferences and things of that nature, that's something that I highly recommend. I know Steve recommends, and almost anybody that I know who's working at being a writer, it's really good. You get to learn a lot, and as Steve has mentioned. We're going to start with a really basic question. What does a literary agent do?
Well, my single biggest job is to sell your work to a publisher. But until that point, I might be your mentor. I might be your proofreader. I might be a shoulder to cry on. A couple of my clients have become good friends, and we've corresponded a lot. But those are my main jobs: to sell your work, to help you get it in better shape, and just to have the holistic approach to teach you how the business works.
Are there any other services that you do in addition to, just that part of it? That's part of your basic process.
Oh, and my wife might help you on editing. Some agents do this a lot. Some do this not at all. I think we're kind of in between. You have to bring your work to me about 80% perfect, and then we can help you get it the rest of the way.
Okay, excellent. What other? So that would be just the basic services. I guess we could kind of back up a little bit and just say, why does an author need an agent?
Well,
because there's a lot out there.
Yeah. Well, the single biggest benefit, I think, is that an agent knows who's who. If you have, say, a mystery novel, then I know about 60 or 70 editors who handle mystery novels. And that is not something that's easy to find out on your own, because these people change jobs every year or two. And just to keep up with who works where and who handles what is a big part of my job, just that research. Most of this stuff you'll never find in any public directory. There are the market guides you can get, there are the online databases, but really a lot of them are outdated before they get to the shelf, because these people move around a lot. That, I think, is the number one thing that we know that you probably don't, is who's who.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And what are the services the agent renders post-publication?
Well, I might help you with your marketing. I might have some ideas for you. I'm constantly searching for your next deal, because on the release of your book is a great time to start pitching the next one. While you are a hot property, while your book sales are at a peak, I can impress the next editor with that achievement. And I can advise you on the timing of your subsequent books.
Okay, good. Okay. Let me get into a little bit the last part of that first portion of the question. How are agents paid, and why authors should never pay an agent out of pocket?
Well, yeah, that's a controversy I've been hearing for decades, that there are certain agents who will charge you to read your book. And I've met a lot of agents. I've never met anyone who does that. So I don't know if that's urban legend or something, but no, you should not pay an agent. The agent will get paid 15% of whatever he earns for you. A movie might be more, because I'd have to bring in a agent. Other things might be more than that because there are extraordinary expenses involved. But definitely it is not normal to pay your agent out of your own pocket.
Excellent. Now, this is a question that it just occurred to me because I know we've done some of these kinds of things before. But if you could give there's a lot of times you probably get approached, and it's like, and I've seen some of your emails, so I know some of these stories, but you'll get really strange people that will approach you about. So, what would be maybe your recommendation? Some of the ways you wouldn't want somebody to approach you. Some caveats on that part of it.
Every agency and every publisher has a website that will tell you exactly how they want you to submit your work to them. They might just want a query, which is a one-page letter. They might want a query and sample chapters, or they might want the whole thing. Find out what it is they want and do exactly that and nothing else. And you should always know how to format a manuscript, how to write that letter. There are a lot of things that you've got to learn before you even begin that process. And that is one place where a writer's conference can help so that you know what the process is for that. I don't mind people writing to me with just questions. I don't mind people writing to me for advice. I can't spend my whole day on it, but I'll be happy to put in some public service. It always comes back to me.
Excellent, excellent. Now, since you did mention query letters, we're going to jump to that a little bit. What I think you sort of kind of please explain this, but what should an author never do or say in a query letter?
Please don't flatter me. I get so many letters. I'm so impressed by your website. I'm so impressed by something you said at a conference. So many people try to flatter me. That will not work. Please don't begin your letter with, I'm looking for an agent. I kind of will figure that out as I go, so you can save those few words from the letter. Be professional. Don't be too familiar. Don't act like we're best friends from third grade. I get that too, and that's a false intimacy that doesn't belong. Just tell me about your book and tell me and persuade me to read it.
Okay. What should authors always include in a query letter?
All right. A greeting, the book's title, the genre, the word count, about a paragraph or two of synopsis, and a little about you. And if you have any record of selling thousands of books, say that too. Or if you're famous from something besides writing, well, that can also be a factor because it will make your book easier to sell if you're already famous, if you have a TV talk show, if you're the expert in your field or something. All of that matters.
Okay. This might, I think we might have covered some of this, but in the last answer. But as an agent, what are some common features that inspire you to reach out to an author who's reached out to you, who's queried you?
Well, I can tell the professional attitude when I see it. I can tell when the letter is not full of typos. My name is not sir. My name is not agent. My name is not sir or madam. If you write to me like I'm a person and use my name. That is the number one advice that I got in high school when writing a business letter. That I forget who said it, but it's true. The most beautiful sound any person can ever hear is the sound of their own name. Start every correspondence with that person's name.
Excellent. How do you feel about when you get query letters? And as I know, I've heard, I like you said something else before. I've never seen anybody do this, but I've heard enough stories to know that this does happen. You'll get like a mass mailing, and you'll just be one of those on that like mass email list. How do you feel about that?
I don't respond to those, especially when it's obvious and they leave the 400 names showing in the clear. It's clear that they're, because, and the problem with that is it is not just not personal, but also you're probably out of compliance for everybody's process in the way that they want to be approached.
Right.
It needs to be one at a time. And also, no matter what your genre is, I guarantee you there are not 400 agents who handle that genre. Now, there's not 400 editors who handle mystery or romance or suspense. Find out who the people are who handle your kind of book.
Excellent. Okay. Okay, and we've gotten into the end of that end of things. How much input do agents have in revisions to a manuscript?
Well, it's your book, not mine. And my wife and I will certainly have ideas for you. We don't expect obedience. What we do expect is that you give it some consideration. It is in my agency contract that I don't send this out to anybody until I think it's ready. And I've had 3 or 4 clients where their book never did become ready, and I had to drop them because they didn't want my advice. And again, I don't want to micromanage your book, but I need to know that if you came to me, then maybe you think I have something to offer. And if you won't let me offer it, we have no business being together.
Okay. Let's, how do you, well, I think you've actually sort of answered it already. Is there anything other than genre in terms of what you would decide where to shop a manuscript, other than, because you deal with a bunch of different genres? And maybe you should talk a little bit about the genres that you do handle, and then talk a little bit about that part of it.
Okay, well, I handle just about anything except I don't handle short stories or poetry or erotica or there's 4 things. I forget the 4th. But I'm pretty open to anything else. I got my start in the Christian market, but I don't want to live there full time. I think it's too small of a world. But every day in my inbox, I get submissions for things that I don't handle. And that author wasted his time. He should have been going to find someone who does handle what he's got. Okay.
Okay, I've got a few more. How are we looking in time? I think we're doing okay. Let's get into some nitty-gritty stuff about how authors are paid by publishers. We could talk about like the difference between advance and royalties and how your commission works. I think you've mentioned that last part already, but.
Okay, sure. Well, if a publisher likes your book and they want to publish it, they will send you a contract. And that contract is never set in stone. There's always some wiggle room for improvements. And that will include your royalty rate. Your royalty rate might be based on the cover price of the book, or it might be based on what's called net. That is, whatever the retailer pays to the publisher for the book. So the book's cover price might be $19.95. And so your royalty is based on that. Or it might be based on the $9 that the bookstore paid to the publisher. So first you have to determine, is it based on cover or net? And then their first offer is almost never the final number. I will always try to bump it up by a few percent. I generally get most of what I ask for. An advance means that your publisher has made an educated guess that you'll probably sell a certain number of books in the first 2 years. So they'll pay you the royalties for that many books up front. And then, God willing, you'll sell at least that many books. But you don't get paid again until you earn out, until you sell all of the books that advance covered. And so sometimes I get a surprise in the mail. I'll get a check I wasn't expecting because one of my clients earned out their advance. We get paid again, which is nice.
Indeed. Excellent. Okay. I had another question, but I want since we are talking about that part of it, I do want to jump to this one. Let's talk about the realities of being a professional writer. Throughout the series, we've heard authors have cautioned our young writers not to rush the process, and that writing as a profession is hard work. In your experience, how common is it for a writer to for that to be their main and only profession?
Most writers do something else to pay their rent, and that includes a lot of famous writers whose names you know. They have separate business. It might be publishing related. It might not be. But whatever the case, there's no shame in that. What matters is you have a book that you want to show to the world, and hopefully a few people will see your vision and buy your book. Just about 10 years ago, I quit my day job to do this full time. And it hasn't been easy because I don't get a regular weekly paycheck. Some months I get 4 or 5 paychecks, some months I get none. And that's the same for an author, except for a tiny number who beat all expectations and blow it out. But even then, that might be a short-term thing for a few months or a couple of years, and they don't have a second book in them. So their career lasts a certain time and then it's over. But at least that day in the sun.
Okay. I think we have time for one more question. About 3 weeks ago, we spoke with author Cody Eplinger, and she mentioned that her manuscript went to auction. Can you tell us a little bit about book auction processes, what they are, how they work, and what role agents play in that?
Well, that is a very rare instance, but I might get lucky enough to have 2 or 3 or more publishers interested in your book. And so it's a very delicate process because if you do that, you'll risk losing 1 or more of those offers. So you really have to be confident. You really need to think carefully before you even start that process, because you don't want to go from 5 offers to none. I'd rather have the lesser offer than no offer. But I have not done an auction. I know agents who have. It is a nail biter. It's a very nervous thing because you never know how it might go. Some authors do very well at the auction. And then there's the Obamas. The Obamas went to the Random House with their memoirs exclusively. And they gave Random House a certain period of time to make them an offer they couldn't refuse, or they go somewhere else. And of course, who would say no to them? So Random House paid them $60 million to write 2 books. They avoided the auction by giving one publisher the exclusive, and for them it worked.
There you go. Does that include the current one that Barack just did? Because I think I heard him say in an interview that one is being split into 2.
I don't know. I don't know that.
Interesting.
But a couple of years ago, they signed a contract to write 2 books, and Michelle's keeping it now first. I don't know about it.
Excellent. So, Amanda, do we have any audience questions?
Hi, so it looks like we have no questions. I want to invite people to post questions if they have general questions they would like to know about how agents work, what they do, some steps of publishing, basic stuff like that. It looks like we had a comment regarding NaNoWriMo and word count, which was that Glenn posted that Jack London wrote 1,000 words a day, he heard. So don't give up on writing. So that's it. If anybody wants to ask questions in the meantime, while we're waiting for some questions to come in, I would love to know, like Steve, you just mentioned like some major deals, and like the Obama's deal with Random House. I was surprised to learn that there was an entire network of publications that serve the publishing industry and that serve writers. I know Publishers Weekly generally tends to publish deals that are put through. Can you talk about some of the resources that professionals like you use to keep up with what's going on in the industry, and how writers might be able to use those same resources to help educate themselves?
Well, my favorite it's called Publishers Marketplace, and it costs $25 a month. And this company also has a daily newsletter called Publishers Lunch. Weird name, but it's great information in there that tells you which editors are moving from here to there, who got promoted, who got fired because of a scandal. If you're writing a mystery novel, you can look at which editors recently made deals for mysteries. I don't think you really need an agent to get that deal. A lot of people bypass agents and do very well. The trick is to know who to call and what to say, because Publishers Lunch and Marketplace just have so much intel every day on what's going on. And even if you're not currently pitching a book, it's good just to get a handle on the business. There are so many people, I am convinced, who are great writers with great stories, but they'll never succeed because they don't understand the necessity to learn the business and to do networking. And no one, I don't mean social media. I mean to go places where you meet people and talk to them and shake their hands. And we can get to that later if you want, about conferences. But you've got to learn the business and the craft both. So Publishers Marketplace is one of my favorites.
So the networking, the who works where and where they're changing jobs to and what they're actively looking for right now. Those are the sorts of things that agents keep up with, and that's the sort of thing that you also like meet people and greet them at conferences so that they can put a face to the name, that sort of thing.
Yes, I always recommend to any writer who's starting out, go to a conference as often as you can. And yes, that means spending money. And yes, that means taking time away from work and school and family. And yes, that means you'll have less money for other things. But if you want to succeed in this business, every industry has a cost of entry. If you were going to start a restaurant, you need tables, chairs, forks, spoons, an oven, knives, pots and pans. Would you open a restaurant if you couldn't afford a stove? Of course not. Don't cut corners on your career, because the opportunities you have right now might not come again.
Awesome. Oh, it looks like we have a question from our audience. So Damar, hi Damar. Damar wrote, when did you first realize you wanted to pursue this career? You did a really great job of explaining how you became an agent a little bit earlier in the program. But the second half of her question is, what's the most exciting part of your job?
Well, I got this idea for this the summer of 2010 when I was contacted by a film producer who wanted me to help him adapt his screenplays into novels. So I found authors to adapt the novels, and I found some publishers who were interested. But after a while, this producer moved on to other projects, so those never happened. In the meantime, I really enjoyed the wheeling and dealing. I really enjoyed the networking and the pitching process. So I talked to my wife and I told her I wanted to quit my boring day job. And would we be homeless in 6 months if I did this? And we ran the numbers, and we already had some savings. And so we took that jump together. And it has gone very well, which I didn't know would happen, but I'm happy to have done this. The exciting part of this job is when I call my clients to tell them I got them a deal. My first client's first book, I sold it in less than 5 months with a huge 5-figure advance. Well, I thought it was huge. And I called her to tell her, and she screamed into the phone. And she yelled across the room to her husband and her daughter and the dog. It was HarperCollins, I should say, that bought this first book. And it's like, after I got my hearing back, I thought, I really like making these calls to tell people that their book got accepted. I have one client who writes young adult novels for teen girls. After I got her third book deal, I got a call from her father thanking me for helping her, and he invited me to come visit and go fishing with him. And I did that. It's on the East Coast. I was going to New York anyway. And so for 3 days, I was with their family. I went to their family dinners, their school play, and it was just so nice to be appreciated because I've had so many crappy jobs. I was lucky to get eye contact from my customers. But now I have a job where people appreciate what I do, and that is worth everything to me.
Excellent.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So we're at the end of our interview time. So we're at 4:40. Yeah, that went by really quickly. Thank you so much, Stephen Hudson, literary agent. Can we flash the website up on the screen? There we go, wordwisemedia.com. Thank you
That's
so
it.
much. We're gonna turn the program over to our librarian from Central Library's Literature and Fiction Department, Krista, who has resources for writers from the library. Sorry, let's see. So let me go ahead and thank you, Krista, so much. I'm gonna go ahead and share this screen real quick. Okay. I think you're muted.
Don't worry. Okay. Hi, everybody. Yeah, these are some resources for life after Nano. At the very first program, I shared some resources for when you're just starting out. Basic things, grammar, plot structure, different types of genres. But now, ideally, at the end of November, you've got a chunk of writing and you want to know, what do I do with it from here? So these are some resources to get you going from the very next step all the way, ideally, to that publishing, that agent, like Mr. Hudson was talking about, and getting your work published. So the next screen will get us going with editing. Amanda? Thanks. So these are some resources for editing and polishing your work, which is to say, taking your rough draft and reworking it as much as needed to really get it to that final point. I know our agent guest was saying that he likes to see work at least 80% perfect where it should be for publication before he's willing to take it on, and I think that's about right. I mean, I think you want to have it as close, as good as you possibly can, and there are lots of resources to help you do this. All of these resources, by the way, all of these books are available in our collection at the Los Angeles Public Library in both print and e-media formats, some not in both, but all of them in one or the other or both. So they're available. Just want you to know everything I'm presenting you can get with your library card. So the one on editing, that's pretty self-explanatory. It contains a lot of good tips. The middle one is very cool because it's formatting and submitting a variety of different types of projects, because NaNoWriMo is, novels, but there's no reason why you shouldn't be writing in other types of manuscripts if you're interested. And I don't know if you can read the cover, but this is a guide that is not only for novels, but also essays, magazine articles, screenplays and TV scripts, short stories, poetry, children's books, and even greeting cards. So if you're a starting writer and you're like, I don't think I'm ready to submit, a 200 or 300 or take that on-page novel, just know that there are lots of shorter formats, short stories, for instance, a micro version of a novel that you can sort of attack first or try to do first. And resources like these will tell you exactly how they should be laid out. And this particular book also has a section on query letters, very detailed for different genres, do's and don'ts, example, sample letters, query letters, I should say. You can't see this, but that will tell you, exactly how to format it, things that you should include, things that you should not include, and for a variety of different submissions, things that you would submit. Then on the right, this is a book that is put out by writers from the Iowa Writers Workshop, which is a very prestigious master's program in writing from the University of Iowa. And some of the best writers in the world have gone through this program. I believe I read recently that it has produced 17 Pulitzer Prize winning writers just from that one university program alone. So this is a book of essays from a variety of writers who've gone through that program, talking about what they learned there, what their process is, how they write, how they edit. And it's telling that the title of the book is The 11th Draft. It's not about like, I'm so talented and smart and wonderful that I busted this out and like had a bestseller the next month. This is the process of writing. 11 drafts, even if you're super talented, it's not going to be something you just do right out of the gate. So this really spells that out from a group of writers that have so much to share. And I think that's a great resource if you're interested in that. Now, I'm talking about editing, but you might be wondering, like, I get the idea of like editing, you want it to be better and not too rough. But this next slide will give us a very specific idea of what editing actually looks like, kind of give you a visual. So this is from Stephen King's book on writing, which was something I included in the first session of NaNoWriMo as a resource, because he talks about, you know, from the very beginning of writing all the way through to publishing. He gives a lot of great insights. This is toward the end of the book, and he actually gives a sample short story that he wrote, and he gives the version that I just did a page of each, you know, not the whole story because it wouldn't fit. But on the left-hand side, the first version is just the rough draft, like what you might have from that NaNoWriMo right now, just your however many hundreds or thousands of words, boom, that came out, right? So this is just the short story as he busted it out with no stopping, no revisions, no perfecting. So he gives that in its entirety. And then right after that version, he shows his edited version with the handmade corrections that you can see on the right. And this is actually a real short story that he wrote. The original title of it was The Hotel Room. And then I think it ended up being called 1408, which is a very famous story that he wrote, short story that was also made into a movie, surprise, surprise. But it's telling because you can see in this case, as in a lot of cases with editing, it's about cutting things out. It's about trimming things down, tightening them up. Sometimes you'll need to add stuff if there seems to be a gap or, you know, like an abrupt change where the reader would get lost and not know what's going on. But oftentimes editing, the word to edit, tends to mean to cut, to refine, to tighten up. And if you have a look at this and read this very short story, the rough version and the edited version, it's a great example. You don't have to wonder in the abstract, what does this mean? You see like, oh, yeah, that is better. And it's very useful, I think, especially for beginning writers who want to get a sense of editing. So let's go to the next slide. Okay, definitely, Mr. Hudson touched on this a lot, the business of writing. He knows way more about it than I do, but the library does have a lot of great resources for that. And again, these are all available that cover topics like the query letter, submitting, the different types of publishing, which I believe are traditional publishing, like what you see in Barnes & Noble, e-publishing, self-publishing, and also collaborative publishing, where you might work with someone else who would edit your manuscript and you would be profit sharing with them. So you want to be aware of the different types of publishing, contracts, sales, marketing, all those business aspects. We have lots and lots of materials that really break it down chapter by chapter so you can get a handle on anything you have questions about. So that's what this is. The next one, yes, finding an agent. Now, it's true, you know, these come out every single year, these guides, and you can, on the left, the Literary Marketplace, LMP, is kind of the Bible of them all. It's a giant fat book, and we already have the 2021, but there is a lot of turnover in that business. I've been to a couple of conferences, and that's just the truth, but they're still very useful, I think, and useful tools. And the Literary Marketplace and the Guide to Literary Agents, which we have right here, actually I have it here. It's very cool the way it's laid out, because it has an alphabetical list of agencies, but in the back, and it has a lot of helpful how to submit and do's and don'ts information. But in the end, there's an index at the back of the book called Literary Agency Specialties, which is, again, what our guest was talking about. Like, don't submit something to a person that doesn't represent that type of manuscript. That's just a waste of everybody's time, and it'll probably annoy them. So this index at the back of this book is great because it's a pretty big book. But if you go to the back, then it's going to break it down into very specific snippets like adventure, cartoon, commercial, with a much shorter list of agents that represent that specific type of manuscript. So instead of like having this huge amount of stuff to wade through, you can then go to those entries and target the available agents and see if you can find a fit. It gives you the contact information, exactly what they want to see, whether it be just a query letter or, you know, also a portion of the manuscript or whatever. So you know exactly how to submit and have all the information you need. So it's true that they do get dated, but they're still useful resources. And I think if you really want to find an agent, it would be a nice place to start. Okay, next slide. These are the similar resources. Yeah, this is, as you can see, it's all put out by Writer's Digest. They look the same because it's the same publisher and the same entity that's creating these. And they also have a magazine, a Writer's Market magazine. But they get very specific. The one in the middle is the biggest, thickest one, and that covers fiction, nonfiction, magazines, everything you can think of, every type of writing. But the red one is specifically for novel and short story writers. And then there's even a poetry market. There's also one for children's literature. So you can refine it even further. And then within each one of these, it gives you the breakdown of what they're looking for, contact information, what they want to see, and you can get very, you know, much more targeted with these resources. And you can submit them yourself. This is if you want to go the route of not maybe getting an agent, but you want to try to just get stuff out there and put it out there yourself. These are good tools to kind of test the waters. And for some things like poetry, that's perfectly fine. I mean, you know, you might not become the next Stephen King doing all the legwork yourself, but, you know, a lot of these smaller genres, the short stories and very specific magazine markets, these are very helpful tools. Okay, what up next? Yeah, here are a couple of ways to get published that you can do right now. Yeah. The first one, the Indie Author Project, is something that the Los Angeles Public Library that we offer through our webpage. If you go to our website and go to LAPL Rights, there will be a whole breakdown of how you can submit your manuscript. It will be evaluated, and you'll get contacted after that. And if it gets accepted, then it will be on our website under the tab LAPL Rights. We have featured books that are submitted by our patrons, just like you. And that's a way that you can go in and get some feedback and have your book put up on our site that people can read. And it's free. So you can look at that through our website. And then Smashwords is what I was told about recently that I discovered, that you can put up your ebook through there for free as well, and it can be marketed out to Amazon and all these different platforms. And it's very easy, step by step, the way it's broken down, telling you how to do it. So it's definitely worth looking at Smashwords if you want to go on there and play around. It's very easy to navigate. And excuse me. And yeah, I would recommend those two for doing self e-publishing. And the next one are just some resources. Yeah, I didn't mention Lynda, which is an online learning platform that we have through our website, but again, through lapl.org and online learning. There are a lot of tutorials for how to write and self-publishing, editing, and all the things we're talking about on there if you like to see sort of an actual class that walks you through it, just mini classes. There's so many great resources on there for writers. So I wanted to make sure I mentioned Lynda. And then the ebooks, we also have a fuller list that's going to be available to anyone who's watching this. But these are just some of the ones that I talked about today, and some that I didn't, like self-editing for fiction writers, and one that's specifically targeted toward young writers. And then, of course, On Writing, the Stephen King book is on there. All of these are available, and I highly recommend that you check them out. And let me know if there are any questions, but that's just sort of a broad overview of some resources at this stage of the game once you have a manuscript to work with. Okay. Amanda, unmute.
Thank you. Sorry, so many buttons to push. Okay, so thank you. That was a ton of resources. That was awesome. I want to remind everybody we put links in the comments. So if you look for those links from the Los Angeles Public Library, to like the Indie Author Project, to the lynda.com classes that you can get for free with your library card online. And also, if you would like a list of the books mentioned in today's program, please just shoot us an email at teens@lapl.org and we'll send that list to you. So we're going to pretty much wrap up our program today. Before I finish everything out and thank everybody again and talk about some programs that are coming up, I would like to ask everybody who's still with us if they have one piece of advice for young writers, for teen writers who've been working so hard all November, what would it be? Mine would be to write on a regular basis, and you will probably get a lot of work done. I know this because I didn't do that, and it's what I hope to do in the future.
I can comment on two pieces of advice. One is sort of what Amanda said, which is to keep writing, never give up, and just keep working at it. And as Steve mentioned, try to get to, I know it's hard right now because of the COVID thing, but as many conferences as you can get to, because you can meet writers and or meet editors, and you can meet publishers, and you can meet agents, and that can be a very useful contact for you as well.
My advice would be to surround yourself with people who are also writing and can be supportive. And if you are a teen, this is a shameless plug, but if you're a teen, ages 11 to 18 and want a group of writers to kind of proofread and just support you in your creative writing process, I have a creative writing club that meets once a month. So you're more than welcome to join. We meet virtually, and we also meet regularly over Discord. So you can always post stuff in our Discord about what you're writing, because it really, really helps to have others to, writing is not, it seems very solo. It is a very solo individual project you're working on your own, but you also need like as much support as you can get, or else, it won't happen. So that's my advice.
Is there any place they can write to, or can they check the online calendar for meetings of your writing club?
Don't have it in the online calendar because I'm not having a meeting in December. There will be one in January. Can I plug my email in the comments, or
you can add it to the comments. I'll put it in there.
Okay.
And then Krista, do you have any?
I will just say, yeah. For me, I think just write about something you love, that you know, that you're passionate about. It sounds stupid, but like for me, I love lip gloss. I've incorporated that into my book. So because it just makes me happy to sit down and think about ways to write about it. And that could be anything. That could be a family situation. It could be a hobby. It could be a place you want to go, or a tradition in your family that you're just very familiar with, something that's just inside you. And that makes it so much more accessible to write about, because it's just always right there, and you can find lots of different interesting ways to plug into something that you are truly passionate about. It will keep you anchored and motivated to write.
Awesome. Thank you so much, everybody. And thanks again to Agent Steve Hudson.
I just wanted to confirm what Krista said. Anyone who knows me knows most of my stuff usually has either music or sports in it. So pretty much that. And find a mentor. Just find one mentor that can help you. And I think that would be really, really important. I know I've got one. So that would be really useful also.
So yeah, and congratulations to everybody who participated in NaNoWriMo. We hope you'll be writing throughout the year, and that next November we will see you here, either in person at the library, hopefully, or on our YouTube channel for more NaNoWriMo fun. So thank you, everybody.
Camp Nano. Camp
Nano. Yeah. So we wanted to thank our guest agent, Steve Hudson. We also wanted to again thank Lenore S. and Bernard A. Greenberg Fund and the Library Foundation of Los Angeles. And thank you to you, our library patrons. We miss you all so much. But until we can meet in the library again, please keep checking out books with our Curbside Library to Go program. Please keep reading and watching and listening to materials from our online collections. And please keep logging into our YouTube and Facebook Live channels for an amazing lineup of programs. Tomorrow, same channel here at 4 p.m. is the Locatura Radio podcast, how to do your own podcast. There's a lot of great information going on. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.